This is the star segment that I've drawn up in SketchUp. As you can see, it's basically a hexagon made up of a bunch of different triangles. The lamination that I drew up in SketchUp also. The reason for this is to give me some measurements, so when I go to the shop to build the lamination, I have everything I need. Here I am at the miter saw, and you can see the lamination that I've glued up, and I'm about to start cutting my little triangles. Next I move to my disc sander, which is being fitted with a 60-degree angle board, just to allow me to get the proper sanding that I need in this next step. Here we are back at the miter saw. As you can see, there's a board on here. I'm going to use that now to make one last cut. We are back at the bench where I'm about to glue on a small strip of mahogany onto the little triangle that we just finished cutting. Six of these little glue ups will be needed to make one star. And now back at the disc sander, we need to clean up our little triangle and get it ready to start assembling the star. Care must be taken not to over sand, as you'll reduce the size of the required triangle. I have a small pencil mark on the piece of tape that tells me how far I can go. And here we have one of the little triangles that we need. Here I am back at the bench. I'm going to test fit the individual triangles onto a full-scale drawing of the star design that we're trying to create. Now that everything looks good, it's time to glue everything together. My choice of glues is Type Bond 3. I find it gives me enough of an open time that I have no issues putting stuff together and having glue dry on me too fast. You don't need a lot of glue, just enough to wet all the surfaces and give a small amount of squeeze out. My clamp of choice is rubber bands. You can buy them really cheap at any office supply store. Sure, I get a nice tight fit on all the joints. I'm going to glue this together in two halves. So now I'm going to insert two nails on the seam where I didn't place any glue. This allows me to make small adjustments to the pieces on each side of that gap to make sure everything's lining up correctly, and it will allow me to do a final sand on the unglued face so that it comes together nice and tight. Shop foreman just popped in to do a little quality control check and make sure I'm not lollygagging here. So hope he's satisfied with my work. As you can see here, the joint in the center of the two halves of the star are not perfect. So we'll address that here at the sander. I'll just very lightly true up both sides and see what kind of fit we can get. It's important to make sure your table is perpendicular to your sanding disc. This is very important to ensure that all your pieces are going to line up nice and flat in the end. Everything is looking pretty good now, so we can head back over to the bench and do the final glue up on the center of our star segment. Pay close attention and make sure you have your two halves oriented correctly. As you can see, I did not. And there we have it. Our star is complete and ready to put the trim around the outside. Here I am back at the bandsaw. The piece of MDF you see laying on the table has been cut to an angle of 30 degrees. I will use that to cut the little corner pieces that go around the outside of the hexagon. Here I am at the table saw cutting those little triangles again off the long stick. Okay, back at the bench again. We're going to glue those small triangles onto 4 of the corners of the hexagon. I'm placing a small shim between the hexagon and the alignment board just to give me room for those small triangles to go past the edge of the hexagon. You'll see why in a bit. Okay, back at the disc sander once again. I've placed a little dot on one corner so that I can use that as a reference. I'm going to use that side to square off the little pieces that protruded when I used that spacer. Here we are back at the bench. We're about to glue on the remaining 2 little corner triangles, and then we'll have to sand those off again. Oops, I forgot to sand one of those little triangles flush before. Okay, here we are back at the disc sander. I've glued those last 2 corner pieces on off camera, and now I'm about to sand everything flush again. Here we all are all sanded up and ready to put the last two pieces on. Here we are at the bandsaw. I'm going to cut those two small strips, maple, and that will be all we need to finish our segment. Almost there. Here we are back at the bench. We're going to glue those two small pieces onto our build-up as it is so far, and a little more sanding and we'll be done. So, did anybody catch it? As you can see, I've glued those two strips on the wrong edges. They should have been on the two sides that didn't have any thing glued to the mahogany. Okay, back at the disc sander. I've corrected my grievous error, and now we're about to do the final sanding of our finished segment. And there you go, our completed segment, ready to be fitted into a vessel. Thanks for watching.